Hey everyone, and welcome to the To Be Silent podcast. In this episode of the podcast, I begin the conversation by reflecting on my recent mushroom ceremony. Lately, I've been working on building my familiarity with being in that altered state, transitioning in and out of it, and with the quality of the interaction I have with the mushrooms, or allies as we like to call them, while I'm in that space. Brian and I then go on to discuss many aspects of building a personal relationship, not just with the plants and allies that one may choose to work with, but also with spirits, energies, entities, or any aspect of the one, as we like to call it, that you may choose to engage with. Throughout the conversation, we explore the idea that by treating all of our spiritual interactions, prayers, and ceremonies the same way we do our human relationships, we can bring things that seem lofty, abstract, and spiritual down to earth. We can feel more free to simply be ourselves and ultimately have more meaningful, authentic, and natural spiritual experiences and relationships. As we begin the podcast, I am asking Brian if he has read a recent essay I wrote conveying what I learned in my latest mushroom ceremony. If you'd like to read what I wrote, you can find the link in the description for this episode. Also, Brian mentions a few things throughout the episode that I want to make sure are clear. He mentions the practice of circle walking, a technique we teach that is a form of rhythmic walking combined with conversational prayer. Also, Brian often says they, or he will refer to other. Within the context of this conversation, they typically refers to the mushrooms, and other refers to any aspect of the one, like a spirit or other type of energy or entity. Finally, Brian mentions the roadman that he had the privilege of working with. A roadman is a Native American shaman who leads peyote ceremonies with their tribe. Okay, I think that's everything. I hope that serves to make the conversation clear and understandable to all. Enjoy the show. So, did you take a look at what I wrote?
Take a look at what you wrote.
Yeah, I emailed it to you.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Oh,
When was it?
oh, okay. Maybe yesterday morning
Oh, Jesus.
or
How did
afternoon
I
or
not
something.
see it?
I don't know.
What was it about?
So I did this I did a mushroom ceremony the other night, and
Yeah.
it was basically like me trying to articulate my conversation with them,
Oh, okay.
what
Okay.
they kind of put in my squash. So,
Still like like a getting to know you again kind of thing.
well, it
Comfort wise.
there was a little bit of, I mean, I would say that it it was that, but then it unfolded into more because and I was so thrilled with how it went. Like
Oh,
the
that's good.
transition was better. I was more comfortable with the all of it. I did, a higher dose. And then the interaction was just like so smooth, and I feel like it's cool just to see how like the attitude that I'm bringing to it, which you've helped me with a lot, is just like more casual, more relaxed, a little more like conversational approach, like has definitely made the whole process better. But it just felt like I was able to smoothly transition into it, and really, really strongly feel the difference between just the energetic and physiological um aspect of being in that state versus that when the interaction is actually happening, like that. Because yeah, it was yeah, that was really cool. And to be able to differentiate those things and increase my comfort level. Um,
Good.
but yeah, it was really great interaction, and it was like really super like helpful for me.
Good.
But I just felt
That's
like,
what we want, right?
yeah, but I just felt like, oh wow. I felt like the impetus to try and articulate what they were showing me
Hmm.
in a form that other people can digest just by reading it, that, because not
Yeah.
everybody's gonna, you know, do that, but it's like, can I translate? Because they use like imagery and, my own thoughts and feelings and memories and perspectives and all these different things to kind of produce this deeper understanding of something. And I got it. And then it was like, okay, but then can you translate that into English basically? And so that's what I tried to do. Um, yeah. So
Cool.
yeah,
That'll be
I thought
good.
it,
I'll definitely try to find it, and I'm sure it's
I'll
there
send it to
somewhere. I
I'll
just don't
send it to you.
understand
Yeah.
why I missed it. And so it was just you to me, or was it under the to be silent heading or
No,
any
no, it
of
was
that stuff?
me. Yeah, it was just me sending it to you on Onshin, I think.
Damn. Okay.
I think so. I'll just resend it to you. Yeah. Um, and because I was thinking we could like talk about it on Zoom and maybe do like sort of a podcast around it, but I thought it would be better if maybe you read the whole thing first.
Okay.
Just because it feels like a lot to juggle
Unwind.
mentally and just like, spool out. So
Well, again, that's, in the end, I mean, that's what we're talking about, even with the circle walking, right? It's like we're trying to get it to the level of this.
right, right, right.
You know,
And
like,
that's
here's what
and
I'm
the
going through, Bry. Here's what I'm going through, Dustin. What do you think? What's your input on that? Like,
right,
you
right,
know,
right. Yeah, and I really feel, I mean, but yeah, and that was another cool aspect of it, was just that it was like a great example of like, or just another level of experiencing that, with something invisible, basically, where you're like,
yeah.
oh,
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's there is, comfort doesn't always equate to, it doesn't have to equate to being overly casual or overly familiar or anything like that, right? Where you don't really care what the person has to say or the other has to say. You're just like, there's a difference between that and just looking for confirmation
right,
of what you want or what you think. It's like, no, you want to have a conversation with, somebody with opposing views or some other things that maybe you're not thinking about at that time. So it's really important. I think that conversational aspect always comes into play for me. You know,
hmm, yeah, right, right,
well, that'll be interesting.
yeah.
I'll be looking for that. Because that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
What
Um,
what what night did you do it? Or what day?
uh, last Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, last Saturday. Why?
Okay. No, I was just curious because,
Oh,
the day will give it
yeah,
sort of that stability factor or
it was a
whatever.
Mercury hour on a Saturday.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
and it was just, yeah, I just felt, yeah, made me feel like, oh, cool. That's basically been like almost like, I think basically once a week
Hmm.
since my birthday,
Yep.
you know, and yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Well, again, in the beginning, it's all we can do to just sort of, like lucid dreaming. The first time you enter that and that's what's happening, it's so shocking, that
Right.
you just snap back, right? Well, that happens with every ritual. As soon as you start, when you first start doing something, you get that first response. It's a shock enough to like jar you out of it, right? So
Yeah.
becoming, doing it so that it just becomes a normal mode. Like nobody gets shocked if they call somebody on the phone and they actually answer it and start talking to you. There's no
Right.
shock value there. It's more
Right.
like elation of, oh, I got them. It wasn't just their message or whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that there's so many analogies to our normal world, right? That it's
And I
it's really
realized,
important to make those links so that we use the strength that we have from being sort of immersed in the culture that we have in our society to, instead of railing against everything and everybody's like, oh, we got so much baggage from all these things and false things and whatever. It's like, yeah, but the way that those things were imprinted on us, we can use that because it's so familiar to us. If we use that in the same way, but toward a different goal, it's just going to be one more layer of comfort,
mm,
familiarity with that, right? So
mm,
I feel like anytime we can do that, we should do that, So um because it's something we already know how to do. We've done it our whole lives.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
And it definitely like solidified for me too that like a lot of my anxiety in that state was coming from, I think, um like the way that I was asking and the things I was asking about was like I think it was just they were responding with like, this is, we're just giving you what you asked for
in the
with
tenor that you asked it.
in the tenor that you asked it. Yeah. And it was like, okay, so
I'm really suffering here. Okay, Justin, this is what you gotta do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah, 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 yeah. Or like, and so it's more like so it's more like once I got into that state and like went into it, they were like the interaction was like, all right, let's look at this, let's look at this. And I felt I was like being taken for a ride almost through
Right.
like all these fears and anxieties and like all that kind of stuff. And so that was the part that was so like unnerving in a way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but this was just like, oh, like, what do you want to talk about? And it's like,
Yeah,
let's
that's
do it.
right. It's like
Okay, let's do it. Let's say, it's like,
hanging
oh,
out on the park bench like Don Juan and Castaneda,
right.
right? Like, oh, what a nice day. Look at these
Yeah.
people walking around. Tell me about how to, you know, teleport. Okay. Tell me about seeing. How do you see? Oh, well, it's like this.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah. I
yeah.
think it's just partially getting more comfortable with that like baseline, you know, of
Well,
like
I mean, and
and I
again,
think
not everybody will
consistency
be
too.
either. Like if some people are really uptight and formal, well, they're going to want all the paraphernalia and all the trappings around them,
Oh
because
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
comfortable for them. I'm not saying that those things are wrong, right? It's like
Yeah.
I can only give the principle and say how I apply that principle,
Hmm.
but because it's a principle, it could be like if somebody's really like into that stuff and loves it and just like loves the dress up and the this and the that and all the fancy implements or whatever, then fucking go for it. I mean, if that puts you in the right state, then that's great.
Yeah.
And everything in between. I mean, like, again, the most extreme I've ever seen is Alex, when he was like, I mean, he was basically, you know, you know, arguing with them and cursing them out at the same time, like it was very very unnerving for my personality to witness that. It's like I said, I mean, I'm not kidding, like there were a few times when I was like backing away because I
Yeah.
didn't want to get hit. I didn't want to be what is it, collateral damage.
Right.
Oh, he's got some fancy shield around him. It bounced off him and stuck to me. I'm melting.
Yeah.
So you know, but I mean, I would never do that because that's not my personality. So I would never address other in that way, but that was his relationship with them, you know.
Right.
And even with
Right.
the celestial master in Mongolia, I mean, it was like I think he said after a few times of, kind of rude, more crude things that he said because that was his personality, the guy was like chuckling and at the same time sort of admonishing him in some way, like, I haven't dealt with somebody like you in, you know, a very, very, very long time, which is saying something for the this guy's basically immortal. So, it's like he's like, I've just not had to deal with somebody that's this aggressive and crude in a very, very, very long time, and so he's like, it's kind of if it was anybody else, they might actually be upset with you, that kind of thing. And and I think Alex's response, if I remember correctly, was basically fuck you, kind of thing, to this immortal. And the guy's just looking at him like, and then all of a sudden just started chuckling, like it's like, the rest of us would be like on our, prostate in front of him, like, please don't kill me. You know,
Right, right, right.
I didn't mean to be rude.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
it's like, oh, it was crazy shit, but again, the principles applied, right? Like you wouldn't, for him to be passive and meek and, or even just friendly conversational isn't his way.
Right,
That would be out of his personality norm, so it's not personal anymore. Now you're acting in a way that isn't you, and that's not good.
right.
So it's not like they don't know,
Right, 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 right.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
part that you got to remember, right? Like all of these things go through my head when I start to feel a little apprehensive or whatever. I'm like, it's not like they don't know who you are. They have a better index of things you've done in your life than you can remember.
Right,
Like not only the events, but what made you choose that, whether it was pettiness or or whatever, um so it's not like you're going to be able to fool them,
right, right, right.
you
Yeah, I
know
mean, that's definitely clear to me.
right? I mean, but that's from experience, not from anything else. I mean, people can
Yeah,
understand it on an intellectual level, but until they have that
yeah.
experience, it doesn't really hit home. And I think that that's, for me, that was the transition. It was the, you know, like especially the roadman, he was, again, I've been so fortunate to have such practical teachers, and always filling in the gaps of where I was lacking. He was just calm and down to earth. He could have been a little gruff as well, and kind of forceful for what he did. And uh but I just remember him, saying things like that. It's like, I'm like, well, I'm a little apprehensive about this. Is like, why? And I'm like, well, because, I don't like to remember how I was. He's like, do you think they don't know who you are and how you are and everything you've ever done in your life, good and bad and indifferent? Do you think that they don't have absolutely perfect access to all of that information? It's not like you're hiding anything from them. They're just, they can only go on, the way that you are. And if you're lining up with that, is that consistent, or are you trying, or are you, like, they're
I have a
taking you at your word at this point.
so I have a question about like when like at this point for me, like all my interactions in ceremony with the mushrooms, I feel like it's me interacting with them like as a like they're the entity or the
Yeah,
spirit or whatever that I'm
sure,
having
sure.
some exchange with, right? And um conversation or otherwise. Um but my sense is that they can also act as like a bridge to other types of
Aspects. Yep.
aspects of the one or energies or spirits,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Because like when um like in the same way that Pandoro, the ayahuasquero, would, I mean, he was doing ayahuasca, and I'm sure that there was an aspect of it, like he would say Dr. Ayahuasca and call on
Right.
that as an aspect to help. But then there was many, many other like spirits and entities that he would work with and
Right.
call on and have interaction with
Yep.
and things like that. So like how how do you use them for that? Like, how do you do that? How was there a point where your relationship with them transitioned into them being functioning also as a bridge to other besides just them, besides
I
just the
think
mushrooms?
it's, I think they helped me with the broader ideas of like entrainment and things like that, right? So obviously they can help you in train because they, you know, they put you in such a, elevated perceptual state, right? So it's like, and in some ways um it makes in training to a certain frequency or whatever that much easier because you're much more sensitive to it, so
And
I remember them
flexible.
sort of coaching me on that, and saying like, yeah, I can't tell you exactly, but it's like, I said something like, you know uh I don't at that time, I don't think I used the word if because I thought that that was too, you know um, I don't know. It was almost like a back door, like I think anytime somebody uses the if in a question, it's like it leaves it too broad. It's sort of like I'm just looking for information. I might never use this. It's like, well, then why do you need the information?
Oh, right,
You,
right.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if I were going to talk to so and so, how would I go
Right.
about doing that?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think I said something more like a statement, like, I'm trying to contact and connect with this aspect. You know, what's the best way for me to progress to get to that end result?
Uh-huh.
Um, and so that's when they really started like, just like you said, in a very kind of like, oh, okay, um, let's, try breathing like this, and then, you know and then when you get to a certain level, we'll tell you when you're in a certain state, and then if you can, and I remember this really clearly, was like, if you can keep going, then we'll lock in this date, and it's like, if you, and then if you, until you can't go anymore, not because, you're exhausted, but because you can't bear it anymore. It's like every time you enter a higher frequency, it's like a magnitude of opening, right? It's
What do you
like,
mean by a magnitude of opening?
it'd be like saying, okay, I'm gonna, if I concentrate on this grain of sand, I'll see the whole Earth. If I concentrate on the Earth, I'll see the whole solar system. If I concentrate on the solar system, I'll see the whole galaxy. If I concentrate on the galaxy, I'll see the whole universe. It's like it just keeps, but it's not like a linear incremental, it's sort of like, it's like way beyond. And that's
Uh-huh.
really what they meant by, and I had a few times where it was like, yeah, like my mouth stopped working. It's like I couldn't articulate where, what I had just experienced. I was like, everything sort of just like literally like, I was just like, I have no words to explain this. Anchor what in? What's an anchor? Who am I? What's happening here?
Right, right, right.
So, yeah, but it was just very, sort of that conversational interaction, and just asking very specific questions again, and saying like, what would be, what would it feel like if I'm, when I do this, or, I'm trying to anchor this in, you know, how would I do that in the most efficient way? You know, and I
Mhm.
think they know too, again, like, because they know you, they know, um, like, if you were asking me a question, I would give you the information. And if I knew more about what you don't like, I would, if there are things that would be done in that territory or needed to be done in that territory or was a possibility, I would skip over those and go to something that I know that would be, engaging for you so that there'd be less resistance on every one of those levels, right? So they
Right.
know all that about you. So they're going to give you, it's already a given that they're going to look at you and say, well, we don't need you to go volcano jumping, well,
Right.
we need
Right.
you to do this, it's like, here's the best way that you would be able to move into that space, and so, and I always found that, you know, I don't, really, without getting mushy, I don't really have good words for that, but it feels that way. It's almost like, you know, I have a lot of gratitude for that, for
Oh,
them presenting it to me in a way that is um, not just understandable, but is almost compassionate in a way. Like, we're not going to make you do things that we know you won't do, because that's not you. So we're going to give it, of all the myriad ways that we could do it, here are the ways that we think would be the most efficient and the most effective for you to move into this or to do this thing or that you want to do or whatever it is.
hmm.
So, yeah, so it's really, it's pretty interesting, when you think about it that way. I mean, because we take a lot of that stuff for granted and but it gives you the feeling of what you're describing to me of what you did on Saturday. It's like there's this smoothness to it, but at the same time, it feels like they're really supporting you. It's like a very solid support, and like they really want you to do well, and neutral at the same time, right? Like it's still your choice. If you decide not to do it, it's okay with them, like, yeah, okay, we're good with that too. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. Sometimes you need a break. Sometimes
Yeah,
you're
let me
pushing too hard or whatever it is.
yeah, it was interesting. One of the things that I was asking them about because I wanted to I thought in my head I was thinking, well, as I was kind of just talking through it with them, I was saying like, hey, like I think it would help me to become even more comfortable if I understood like what it is that you want. Like what are you doing? What's your like why do you
Why help me? Why help
yeah,
pathetic me?
well, yeah, 100%.
Been
Uh, but it was
there,
like,
done that. It's
but
a good,
I mean,
it's a good question. Not everybody asks it.
yeah, well, it's like, yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
of
It's like,
course.
yeah, because it's like, okay, how am I contributing to anything that could possibly be of benefit to you other than like, you know what I mean? And I think, what I got back was like, and you can tell me what you think about this or my interpretation or understanding is correct, but um, they it was like they were giving me the sense that like uh creation isn't complete and that it's not like necessarily heading towards a um unknown like a perfectly known destination.
Hmm.
And so like the process of me like evolving and learning is like part of the unfolding of that unknown journey um and as and every time they interact with me it is like exciting and novel and interesting to them and also like uh contributing to their total understanding of like how to help people and communicate with them and and have these types of interactions. So in some ways it's like it makes them even better at what they do by like having another drop of you know interaction with another unique human, and
Yeah, another unique aspect, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I have a growing you know, right now it's just sort of a thought, but at some point, if I, it may just be spontaneous if I'm in one of those sessions or whatever and ask, um, but their purpose, I'm sure they have multiple purposes, but one of their purposes may just be to like, help accelerate evolution, for us.
Yeah, like, and I got this sense, and maybe it was just they were maybe just who knows if it's this is what they said. Um, you know, but they gave me this that it kind of tapped on my understanding or whatever that like as human beings, like we've chosen to be in like the densest place that there is, right? In the universe in terms of like our sense of separation from the one and like density,
Limitation.
limitation and density of experience and like helping people to move through that and evolve through that is actually kind of an honor for them to 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 help to support us in that process and to be a part of the process and to
Right.
experience it with us in a way,
Well, I mean, in a way, I mean, isn't that true of, all of us if we look at it from a more abstract view, right? I mean, you know, you're helping everyone by, it's in some ways it's an honor for you to, bless the world with a little more beauty, through
Mhm.
your art or whatever. And for me, it's, you know, um, helping, the evolutionary path of people by, you know, it's an honor for me to be able to help somebody in with their health or whatever it is, So it's like, yeah, we don't think about that. A lot of times we're just thinking it's a transactional thing, but
Right, right, right,
on a
right.
different level, it's not. It's literally like it's an honor for us to be able to do that. Because look, I mean, no matter what we think, right? And no matter how humble we are, I mean, really, not false humility, but like, if you took all of the artists of your caliber, you're not even going to be a percentage point on the world scale. Well, it doesn't get much more honorable than that. It's like, you're in a very elite category, and I'm in a different category, but similarly, right? And there are, the vast majority of human beings, they're working on a very tiny, they're no less honorable if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, whether it's taking care of their family or their whatever, and doing a good job at whatever, but there's they've not embodied that idea that it's extremely honorable to be an excellent plumber or an excellent whatever you do, not just droning through your day. I'm sure most people aren't thinking, that I'm sure most baristas aren't thinking, I'm so honorable by making this really good coffee for everybody.
Mhm.
you know it's like when you get down to it, we all occupy a certain niche, right? And so why wouldn't they, if that's, almost a universal principle, why wouldn't they feel honored to be able to do that? I can't imagine that an archangel doesn't feel honored to be able to not let galaxies collide together or whatever the fuck they do,
Right, right,
so
right, right.
unless it's supposed to be, right? And
Yeah.
so, but that's their, they take it to heart that way. And so it's very honorable to do the best thing that you can do, for the most in our case, for our world, so that more people can like observe that or have that experience through our hands or whatever we do. And they're going to, because of that, they're going to be better people and they're going to they're going to spread that betterness into from their friends, their family, whatever, and hopefully they'll become a node. So we're actually impacting way more people than we than the transactional part at the bottom rung, right? It's like they're gonna there's that that whole idea of the what is it seven 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 steps or not seven steps seven
Steps removed.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, when you start looking at it, everybody's connected to like a billion people or something. It's like
Right.
that no
Right.
matter what it is, you can find the links, right? It's like we are really all connected in that way. So anytime we do something for anybody, it's going to, that's going to have that reverberation into, just from them to their closest people to out into the community and beyond that, right?
Right.
So I have people that um I have patients that have told me um after they had their experience that they talked to as a random thing, they talked to a great aunt or something out in a different state, far away, and saying, "Oh, Auntie Joe, you probably should like, try some acupuncture for that. That'd probably be pretty good." And, they never thought of it. They never had that idea. They went and they got treated and they ended up with, in some cases, several years of like relief, from,
Right.
and I never touched them. It wasn't me. It was another acupuncturist someplace else. But if I wouldn't have, if that person that I treated wouldn't have had a good experience, they might have said something. Maybe they didn't say something, but
Right. Right. Right.
it extends out, right?
Yeah, I think I mean that word that you're using about the like transactional interaction or relationship, like that's like um just like pinging on something really deep for me, and I feel like it has to do with like everything that I do, whether it's like my painting or the creation of To Be Silent and what we do, like, and I don't know what to say about it other than like it just made me feel quite emotional when you said it, because it's like I've always like that's the thing that I've always felt so grateful to you for, in a way, is that like as much as I've really worried about like my like whether I was giving enough in our relationship, um, because I've always gotten so much from you, um, and been supported by you so much, that like uh, but what I appreciate so much is that like I never got the sense that you like past a certain point you never really thought about our relationship that way, or that you weren't like engaging it in that way. And of course I feel that from the mushrooms as well, and part of the gratitude that I feel in that experience is I guess probably partly that, like, um but I think it does like raise kind of um it does kind of raise some aspect of the underlying maybe um like uh, issue or disturbance or hindrance for me, like in my businesses, in a way, because there is some um dissonance uh with doing things that are like so heartfelt, but needing to make them transactional, and not knowing how to do that in a way that feels right, you know?
Hmm.
So, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but yeah, that's
Well, I
just
mean, I think, I mean, I think I get what you're saying, and I think that, part of it is, we're trying to do something on a level that, if I'll take the take the side of like the new age people or whatever, where it's like, well, if it's so great, why aren't you doing it for free? Well, we kind of are, you know,
Yeah,
and it's
basically.
like, and it's like so, I felt like that was a good transition that we made there. And, and I think it's the right way to go where we can do it. It puts us in a very balanced state because if we continue, it's good. It's fine. It's like if it ever comes to the point where it's not and we cut it loose, we've still done the honorable thing. We've still put out a bunch of information for those that want it and hopefully in the most succinct and way that they could actually take that information and utilize it, right? So, and that's a good thing. The so uh, But again, maybe one of the things is that when we have the foundational stuff, excuse me,
Bless
have the
you.
foundational stuff down, and that's all set and ready to go. Well, that's the time to look, and when we have that, um, you know, Hermosi's idea of like, well, what are you doing? What is it that you're doing? You can consolidate down into a single statement or whatever, or a very short statement. Um, then, you know, the thing that we're having the hardest time with will become apparent. You know, it's like it really needs to be, you know, basically this whole, in a very weird way, this whole thing has become a giant analysis of what do we want and why do we want it. It's only taken X number of years to go through it. Balancing everything else or trying to along the way. How much information can we give them? We want to give them everything. Okay. In great detail, in great format. Oh, okay. It's like, then it's this and it's that.
Right.
But it's like, the whole thing. Well, why? Why do you want to do that? It's like when we come to that, when we have it in a nutshell, I think the everything else that we're talking about will just be, my thought is that it will become apparent. The
Mm,
clearer that statement is, the more apparent the way it can be presented to people will be.
mhm. Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, even in the beginning, right? It's like the transactional thing with, like the old apprenticeship ways, right? It's like you send them away 3 times, and then on the third, when they come back the third time, if they come back, which is rare, then it's like, you give them something to do, and then you send them away for a year or whatever, and say, come back in a year and tell me what you've done, you know,
Hmm.
and then okay, then it's like you know there's some seriousness there. I mean, it's not like there's any monetary transaction going on at that point, right? It's like literally like there's got to be something solid that there has to be some kind of transaction. There has to be some reciprocation of that energetic, induction to some degree, right? And so um yeah. And so, I mean, everything on that level is going to be, transactional too, till you get to a point where it doesn't really matter anymore because they're so in it. Now you're just, it would be a crime not to support their movement through it as long as they can hang on and the relationship is good and never taking advantage of that, never, like all of those things that, would be apparent to, I think, apparent, but so many people break those rules that it's just like,
Mm,
then that taints the whole relationship, right? So it's more like, you know, I never I've never felt bad about it because it's like, you paid your dues, you're in it, you're putting your time and effort into it, you're doing everything that you can do. And, um, and I'm trying to be as much on the other side, give you, or, you know, um, not give you what you need, but, like interacting with you in a way that will, help point you in a certain direction, or, help you to, flesh out what you want to be, so, and that's why would I hold that back? That's kind of like, that'd be like the Allies saying, like, well, here's your bill for the last 5 trips. And we haven't gotten one red cent yet. So you know what? We want your cat.
You can't have her.
That's right. She'll be a little Mew Mew hostage, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh man, that's funny.
yeah, that's I mean. Yeah, because I mean, again, maybe other people have different relationships with them. Maybe, who knows? But, I've never found them to be super aggressive or anything like that. They always seem to be very amiable, to me.
Oh, sure.
Always, always, And again, is that just me coming, are they using my way of doing things to sort of send that back to me and saying, like, this is the way he communicates on a regular basis. So in order for us to be understood, we're going to have to communicate like that to him, you know? I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and I can't even give you a specific where they do, and maybe it's so laughable to me. Like I've had horrible laughing fits on some times, where it's just like they'll do something and then they'll go like, and it's like so outrageous, and then they'll go, you know and then when I know that they're just fucking with me, and I'm like, ha ha ha, it's like, I just had to break the tension up, it's okay, it's like you were getting a little too serious. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, and then later I'm like, oh fuck, I do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's funny.
So yeah, but they've always been, very amiable with me. I mean, even in very difficult encounters, it was still, I never felt malice. I always felt like, or anger or any of that. It was just more like, okay, you've made it to the top of the roller coaster, but we can't let you out here. You know?
What is that? Like, can you talk more about that? What do you mean by that?
Oh,
And
just
why were
like,
the and what brought on the difficult encounters?
um, I, to be honest, I mean, if I had to give you a general thing, at least for me, it's when I make my, and I really try not to do this, but every now and then it will come out, if my question is too broad. It's almost like they will answer it, but they can only shrink it down so far. And so if that so far isn't far enough and it's still this giant packet of information that's coming at you, it's like it's pretty, can just be very difficult to sort of go through that. I always think of it like the whole that Doctor Strange where she sends him out into the friggin' ethers, right? And he's going,
Right.
like everything's kaleidoscopic, and then like hands and fingers on hands, and just like it just keeps going into the craziness, and then like really fast, and then like pause, and then really fast again, and then like it's very disorienting, and that you're getting this very broad view of the situation, but it's so disconcerting that you can't sit back and
Yeah.
go, oh, okay, let me interpret these incredible symbols and incredible events. It's just like it's overwhelming, so you're more like curling up in a ball on the floor and going like, make it stop.
Have you ever been in one of those situations and then gone like, okay, wait, maybe can we like take it down a notch
Oh,
or
sure.
focus on one aspect, or I can't do this right now.
There's
I can't
no
handle
doubt
this.
that you can do that. I am very able to do that. And just
Yeah,
I just say back off, and that's, and it's like,
really.
and they
With
will pull
that
it, and
tenor,
they will pull it back, they'll pull back the intensity of the experience.
you'll just say that like in that way too.
Yeah, because a lot of times in those things, if you try to articulate it more, you lose it, right? Because
Right.
you
You
can't
can't even,
coherently keep things together that well. So for
right,
me, back off means, that's like, I mean, I hate to use the analogy, but that would be like my safe word, where it's like, okay,
right.
the experience is too much. That's my stop. Like you
Uh-huh.
need to back it up so I can like get my, if you don't want me to be a dribbling pool on the floor, you got to pull it back,
Right.
So, and I've had them do that, and so, and then I can sort of like catch my breath, re rethink where I am, and then, either not go back, or go back a little gentler, or, try a different way to sort of get in there and take it
Have
down
you
a
ever
notch.
heard anybody talk about interacting with mushrooms like this?
I don't think so. Um,
Because the general sense that I get, like I just don't like. I think Terrence McKenna obviously did a great job of like talking about like their personality and the sort of conversational aspect of it, and like the teaching, and even that there was vocal as well as visual
right.
and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. Um, but and that they would like speak to him, but I just I just feel like even like his brother or no, like nobody, I've never heard anybody besides you or us or whatever talk about it in that way, where it's like it's a relationship. You're having this kind of interaction. You can ask them to do this or ask them for that, or you know like literally treating it just like a human relationship in a way, in that way.
Well,
And
it's our, I mean, we have these anomalies in our world of like, people like, I don't know the guy's real name, but like the horse whisperer, where he was just so, his perceptual state was that of somebody who was human, but they just instinctually, or for some reason, had such an intuitive way of perceiving um, the way horses interact with other horses,
mm,
and like almost learning their language so that he could take any horse, even ones that were like, they were going to put them down because they were just so aggressive and so wild, right? That nobody could do anything with them. And he would literally just walk out into the field with no rope, no anything, and just like, and interact with them body language wise in a way that would make the horse extremely comfortable with them, and he could like calm it and talk to it and get it to do whatever he wanted, but those are anomalies, like they're very, that's very few and far between. And so
are you
um
are you suggesting that you're like that, or
I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying that like I
because I
couldn't,
do think
I
about
wouldn't
that
be
some
able to use that technique. Like if I wanted to know, if I wanted to communicate with an alligator, I'd have to learn all the alligator stuff to be able to
right.
do that, right? So, and, and still probably get, mauled or whatever. But at the same time, at least it would, I would understand, the interaction, to some degree, maybe. But, so I think again for us, to me it's like literally almost something that just is common sense. Like if you have the most experience having relationships with other human beings in all different ways, then Why would you think that you need a different way of interacting with other? It's like that's almost like a weird control idea. Like that's the churches. That's those traditions where it's like you have to in order for you to really be on good terms with God, you've got to get baptized and you've got to, like you have to say these prayers and you have to come to this place, this building, and you got to, like offer some money, do some things. I mean, in general, okay, but like specifically, it's made it very sterile, right? There's really nothing there. It's not a relationship. They talk about relationships, but they don't tell you how to build a relationship, And so because they have all these artificial man-made rules,
And the idea that those things are like,
you have to do them in order to have that
and
relationship.
also that it's almost like I get the sense that it's like those things are like almost untouchable and like
Well,
there's
it's the
no,
word of God, right? I mean, that's what
yeah,
they're going to tell you. And yet at the same time, there's nothing in the Bible that tells them how to run church, to run a
right.
mass.
Oh,
That's
right.
all artificial shit that they put together and
Hmm.
and multiple layers, right, to keep you from having a personal relationship with God. In fact, they used to fucking burn people that had personal relationships with God. Joan of Arc, all these visionaries, half of them got put to the sword or the torch, because that takes away from the singular power of Rome or whatever, right? The Roman Catholic Church or whatever it is, the Pope, right? It makes all his underlings from the cardinals through the down to a parish priest, it makes them all to some degree irrelevant, right? They don't, if they came out and said, you could do it our way, or here's another way that you could do it. You choose what's most comfortable for you, you know? But they don't because that would undermine their authority, right? Their authority is they talk to God. You have to talk to them. You're not important enough to talk to God directly, you know? You don't have all the rites and rituals and da 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 da. It's like, well, I don't think that's true, because it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I've talked to God directly, but I've had plenty of conversations with different aspects of God, and it's like seemed to work out for me okay. You know, I'm pretty confident that I'm, where I'm going and what I'm doing. Um, look, and if it's not, I won't even know until the end, right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I just, my sense is that, I'll be fine. But if it turns out that I won't be fine, well, then, I'll worry about that then. I'm not going to worry about it now. Right now, I'm pretty good, So it's it's just there's just certain things that you have to you have to feel it after a while. I mean, there's a certain point where logic and reason goes away because you know you can't see it, you can't touch it or smell it or taste it or whatever, right? It's like the combination of your life experience. And then when you delve into these things and change your perceptual state, you have a different experience. And so if you change that perceptual state enough, you have a much different experience, right? So, um, but it's all about that and being able to consistently go back there and build on that, right? I mean, it's like the people that I most enjoy hanging out with are the people that I want to hang out with more, right? I want to build the relationship more. I don't want to let it go. I want it to be enhanced on a regular basis, The people
Yeah.
that we feel that strongly enough, the most strongly are the people we marry, right? The
Right.
people that
Right.
like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of these things, right? We don't have to look far we don't have to make it so abstract that it loses all uh
Coherence.
coherency. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you have to be able to understand it. And again, one of the best pieces of advice ever given to me, and I hope for everyone, is that if you get into that quagmire of abstraction, that's you're in the weeds, the thing that will clear your head is find a physical analogy and apply that and then see, does that hold water or not. And most times it will if you find the right analogy. If you find the right physical scenario that represents that, it will make the abstraction clear. It will become less abstract and more concrete, right? You can say it's like this. It's not exactly this, but it's like this. And that will clear your mind of all the little things that you can get confused about or whatever. And you work through things that way, you know, and it just makes it it's dumbing down those very high ideas to something that we can sort of not just understand, but then apply, right? It's not just about understanding, it's about applying what you understand, right? That's where the wisdom comes. It's like, when do I do it? How do I do it? It's like, it's not just, oh, I understand the general idea of it. I intellectually understand this that makes sense, but how do you then utilize it? That's such an important thing. And if I don't have a good understanding of the principle behind it, um, then it's too abstract. And so I need to put it into a physical model so that you know, I can understand it from that perspective. And then when I apply that back on itself, it takes away the obscuration of the abstraction and makes it more concrete. You start to see the bones of the scenario or whatever it is that you're looking at, right? And it's like, oh, I can apply myself that way. And then you do, and then you have the feedback loop, right? You do something, you have the experience, you write down your experience, you write down the questions about that experience. How can I enhance that? How can I take this away? Blah blah blah. And then you do it again, right? So it's like it becomes this, it's a toe in the door of these experiences, right? And so, and you want to open the door, slowly at first, because that's the only way to do it. And then and then over time, you're able to walk through that door into a different experience level, right?
I
And
was
that's
just
all if you want. Some people, you know, it's kind of like when I was saying with, the evocation, it's like, it doesn't have to be something as scary as evocation or as dramatic as that, right? It could be, I mean, some people will have like a frightening experience doing burning meditation, right?
Oh
And
yeah. I mean, I truly, truly, truly recognize that even in myself, that I get anxiety in my conscious mind sometimes even when I'm doing like a very deep relaxation. And so and I feel like, okay, tell me what you think about this, but when you were talking about the analogy thing, I thought, well, what if it's something physical that I haven't figured out yet? Like if it's like the business stuff that I was talking about.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about social media or self promoting myself and things like that, and I got the sense of like this. I mean, okay, this just came to me. I don't know if it's right or not, but the maybe the way for me to think about the purpose of those things and the way to go about it that makes it not feel disruptively transactional um is using it as a way to do the same thing that I was seeking from the mushrooms in my last couple of ceremonies, right? Which is like I just want to get more comfortable
Right.
with the quality of your energy so that I can do this more frequently and not just be like crippled with like how intense it is or the whatever
Exactly.
anxiety of it. And
Yep.
it's just like, and you're saying, you're talking about like the whole like building the familiarity of the relationship. Well, if people don't see you that frequently, or have that much interaction with you, you're just as odd to them as, you know,
Yeah,
the allies may be to me when I take them,
of course.
until you like get enough interaction with a person that you're like, oh, hey, they're kind of like me. They're not so odd. They're a little bit like this, they're a little bit like that. Oh, maybe I kind of like them actually. It's not
Yeah,
just that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
their work is good or I like their stuff. It's like they're cool too. Like, and then,
Exactly.
because all the people that have almost all the people that have bought my artwork are people that on some level have gotten to know me, you know. And and so it's just it's kind of, I never really thought about it that way,
Yeah.
but it's like, but I think that makes that makes some good sense to me,
Well, again,
it's almost like
and when it makes sense to you and then you apply it in that way, maybe there's just little slight augmentations to what you do, but you're doing it from that, you know, heartfelt want, like when you ask them, it's like when I ask them, as not like, what are you getting out of this? But like I'll ask them, like, what is there something that I can do for you? I'd like to
uh,
do something for you. What, we've, is is there anything that I can do? Um, and I don't just, I mean, every now and then I'll ask that, it's like, it's not every time. It's like, it's sort of implied that if they need me, I've sort of stated that, like, if you need something from me, ask me. It's like, hey, we really need you to go, pour some scotch on this pine tree because, we can get it that way or whatever, that's like, that's fine, but it's like, every now and then I'll just repeat it. And I think, in some ways, a lot of times there's not really any response. Sometimes I'll get sort of a visual back of, like a flash in my mind of something that I can do. And sometimes, and I really, it's funny, right? Because some stuff is just so like I can't even make heads or tails out of it. Like literally, like you know,
can you give me
and
an
I
example?
started to think, because I was like, huh, the first few times I did it, I mean, it was all very nothing to do, really, but I did it, and I couldn't help but think the first few times, like, I don't know what this is doing, but I'll do it. Okay, and it's like, and then after, and at one point, I just remember all these stories, like I thought about it, and I was just thinking, like, wow, I wonder what that actually does or whatever. It's just so weird that, they make me do or want me to do this or whatever it is, right? And uh and then and then I th thought back to all these stories of like the old days, and some not so old, like shaman and roadmen and medicine men and mystics and whatever. And one of the things that always made them stand out was they were a bit odd, right? They would do things with seemingly nothing, nobody could figure out what the hell it was, and it just became like, oh, he talks with the spirit so much he's a little fucked in the head, and so and but it's like I started thinking about it. I'm like, that's kind of in that, like, I didn't initiate that. I mean, I initiated it by asking what I could do, but when they said, oh, you could, why don't you do this, for us or whatever, and I, and then after I did that a few times, it was like, oh, maybe that's where those stories come from. Like whatever allies they were using at the time or whatever spirits they were working with or whatever, they would ask them, what can I do for you? Or how can I reciprocate in some way or whatever? Is there something that I could do for you? Um, and they gave them these odd things, which there's no effing way that I could tell you why energetically that would have been, that would be a good thing to do or whatever. It would be never anything I would think of. I can tell you that right now.
Do you
Um,
think that there was some actual fulfillment of some need that you
yes.
You don't think that
I'm convinced of that. I don't
you
think it
don't
was just like, let's see if he'll do this.
no, I don't mean that. I meant like, you don't think that they were just doing it for you so that you felt like you had done something for them?
Yeah, I don't
Like,
think it was like a bread of shame kind of thing. I think it was literally like it did something energetically that helped augment the energy of the area or whatever that helped them out somehow. I
mm,
don't know how. It is far beyond me, and I've never come back and asked like, "Hey, why'd you make me dig a hole and fill it in this exact spot?" It's like, or whatever it is. And I'm like, I mean, I should have, I guess, just because it's a
right,
question in my mind, but I just thought, you know, I mean, other than physical labor, it didn't really cost me anything other than maybe somebody seeing me and going like, what the fuck is that guy doing? A little embarrassment. Oh, I thought I lost my watch over here and oh, nope, it's not there. Just thought I had to dig a 3-foot hole and fill it in again. So yeah, so
that's funny.
I mean, it's just part, but that's part of a relationship building as well, right? It's kind of like we're hanging out, we're having a good time, but if you need something, you let me know, and if I can do it, I do it, and if whatever, right?
Yeah,
It's like ordering herbs or whatever. Hey, can I order some herbs? Sure. It's like no problem. It's like we'll figure do the transaction, figure it out, whatever, right? So it's not, but it's it, you know, I mean, I expect people to in some ways to ask me, but then I have to then reciprocate and ask them, something that's helping me and say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? Or hey, is there anything, and most times not, but sometimes yes. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's easy enough to remedy, let me do that. And it's never been anything that's been like
oh yeah, yeah,
off, right?
right,
It's never
right,
been anything that's been extreme or anything like that.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and which is, comforting on one level, but also confirming on another that they've never been anything but um amiable to me, like
Mhm.
as far as that goes, friendly almost, in a way. Um, it's weird how something like that can be, awe-inspiring and friendly at the same time. Because friendly seems like such a mild word.
What
It,
seems like
it
such a mild word?
friendly, like,
That's what I,
that's
yeah,
like us, like, well,
yeah,
more, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's there's something about it that's just like, hey man, how's it going? Like friendly.
yeah. Like it's like light and profound at the same time.
Exactly. Exactly. What a nice balance of that, right?
Yeah, and it can be like, I mean, just that it can be, yeah, so
Well, it can be
powerful or
disconcerting because,
yeah.
here's and confusing to people too, because we've always been, whether you have learned a tradition or not, you've had enough impact with society to think that whatever your idea of God is, it's way up here and you're way down here and you're nothing and it's everything. And so, how would a relationship with something like that be friendly at the same time as awe-inspiring? You know? Yeah, but somehow they achieve that very well. It's a really nice balance, and I'm not complaining. Believe me, that's great. I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
so
awesome.
yeah, right. So very cool.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. Oh God. So yeah, that's all I got, dude.
cool. That was great. Thanks for listening to our latest episode. Do you have questions after listening? Would you like to have more contact with us and engage in our bi-monthly Q&A calls, as well as have access to our library of practices and guided meditations? If so, we invite you to visit our website, tobesilent.com, and start your 30-day free trial of the To Be Silent membership. Your 30-day free trial will give you full access to the membership experience, and you'll get to join us for free on 2 of our live Q&A calls just to see if it's right for you. Thanks again for tuning in. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions about the podcast or about the membership program. Talk to you soon.